type of person that feels like you don't have a story. I feel like I get this all the time, but I have a guest that feels the same exact way, and I'm here to tell you that everybody has a story, and Andrew is going to be living proof that even somebody who feels that they don't have a story, they do have a story. So I want to thank you so much for being on the show with us today, Andrew.
I'm glad to be here.
And Andrew is one of my friends from college, so I'm very grateful that we finally got to get him on the show. I've been begging him for a few years now to get him on. So he's here, and I'm excited to hear his story myself, and I hope you guys sit back and be inspired. You might want to grab some popcorn, some coffee, whatever you guys want to do, and just hang out with us. So Andrew, could you tell people a little bit about who you are, for those that don't know you?
So I was born and raised in the same small town, Turlock. If you blink, you'll miss it when you're driving down the freeway. And right now I currently work as a manager in a small cafe, and it's exciting. I like my job. I like going in every day and being able to make people's lives a little bit better with some coffee and some food.
Coffee and food are always good. And you weren't always the manager, right?
No, actually, just a couple months ago, I was promoted to manager. I started at the bottom there.
Wow. And what was that like, doing that transition of going into being a manager?
Very difficult. How it worked out was just that someone was transferring to somewhere else, and so there was this position open, and I told my GM I was interested, and he had actually said, like, oh, well, we'll see about in the future maybe, because I don't know if you're ready yet. And then a couple months later, he's like, hey, just so you know, you're going to start training soon. And it was a shock to me, because I thought there were several people who would have been promoted in front of me, had more experience, more knowledge about the job than I did, but it simply came down to he saw that I wanted it, and he knew that I'd be good at it.
Do you think that was favor?
No, not at all. No, I was a hard worker, and I always have been, and I feel like that's one of the things that's most important, is that you work hard and enjoy the work you do.
And you weren't always working full-time. You were a student. So can you tell me a little about how that all changed?
I realized that right now, college wasn't for me. I feel like, and that's something that a lot of people struggle with. I've actually been talking with my friends about that. It's something that I feel a lot, right out of high school, a lot of people are pushed right into college. It's like, okay, you finished high school, graduated, right, time to go to college. And sometimes we just ask people, oh, what do you want to do when you grow up? And they go and they do what they want to do, and they realize, like, this is what I wanted, but this is not like what I feel like I'm called to do. And it ends up with a lot of people being unhappy with their majors, and like there's some staggering statistic of an average college student will change their major 3 or 4 times throughout their time in school. I know I was in school for 2 years, and I changed my major before I dropped out, because I realized, like, this just isn't for me right now. I wanted to work, because working is very important to me, and I want to try to find what I'm going to do before I move forward and continue my education. And I think that's a lot of people, especially our age, can really learn that it's okay to just take some time off to go be in the workforce, find out what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, and then your education can follow that, hopefully saving you some time and a lot of stress in school.
What have you learned since going off of the beaten path?
What have I learned? That hard work is hard. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is that
it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Adulting is hard.
I mean, I used to be at my job 20 hours a week. Most of it was when, a portion of it was when no one else was at the cafe, because I'd be doing side work, cleaning and putting away our deliveries, to now I'm there more than 40 hours a week, working constantly with customers and with the employees there. And it's a huge transition, but if you put your mind to something like that, if you just say, like, this is something that I want to do, it becomes a lot easier. And that's what I did. I just came in and said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do my best job I can, and no one can fault me for that. And it became really easy.
How do you feel you're able to represent Christ in the role that you have been given?
I heard it said that Christianity is a billboard campaign. Each of us were the billboards. People look at us, especially when they know that we're Christians, saying, how is this person living their life? And so if I go to work and I'm upset all the time, don't want to be there, I'm mean to the customers and the employees, my coworkers know that I go to church. They know that I'm a Christian. And so they're going to see that and be like, wow, so that's what Christianity is all about, okay? That's not for me. And so it's important to go into work with a smile on my face, knowing that I enjoy what I'm doing, dealing with each of dealing with all my interactions with the customers and with the associates with love, the love that Christ gives to us, and it's our job to share that with everyone else. And so it's the biggest thing is knowing that you're kind of always on the spot, being the billboard for Christianity.
And that is a very difficult thing to deal with, because we have our own struggles and we have our own problems. What types of things do you struggle with on a day-to-day basis as being a believer and trying to, really present Christ in the best way possible?
Sometimes it's hard to keep that smile on your face. Sometimes it's hard to always be a happy person, always be showing that love, because we do go through struggles. So it's hard sometimes to give that love to other people when we don't feel it ourselves. And I feel when that happens, it's good to take a step back and kind of do almost a self-inventory. Maybe it's going on a church retreat. Maybe it's just taking a 5-minute walk somewhere quiet and just kind of remembering who you are, where you are, and what you're doing, and remembering that, trying to find God's role in your life, kind of find where he's helping you, and rediscovering that love he has for us.
And when did you come to know God?
My mom was actually born and raised Christian, and she kind of fell away from the church sometime in her adulthood. And then when I was about 10 years old, she came to my dad and said, I want to go back to church. And my dad was like, okay, let's go. And it just clicked for me instantly. I was so interested in this new thing. I wanted to know all about it. I had memories of my mom driving me home from school, from elementary school, and I'd just be asking her questions about Catholicism, being like, oh, what's this mean? Oh, what's that? Oh, when did this happen? And I just learned so much by just constantly asking questions. And that's how I came to know my faith, is just being brought into it, and it instantly clicked for me, just oh, this is something that is interesting to me and something I want to know more about.
What tips do you have for people to get them interested in it as well?
Find something getting into the Bible is something I feel is the hardest thing for people to do. And so find a story in there that you've recognized. For example, the prodigal son. That's a great story that many people have heard before. Read the story. Read it back forwards. Read it from the front to the. Read that story from the beginning to the end. Read the entire book that story is in. Go online, find out some information about the time period, about the writer, and you'll just, by diving in to something that you're interested in, I feel it makes it just so much, it opens it up to you, and you realize you can kind of go off on all these little tangents to elsewhere in the Bible, because so many things connect.
Did you ever have a moment growing up in, a house filled with believers? Did you ever have a moment where you felt like maybe this wasn't for you, that you felt maybe forced into it at all?
I was fortunate. I never actually had that feeling. Throughout high school, I attended our youth group, and I would go on retreats. So the closest thing I had to that was I would go on these retreats, and particularly during praise and worship, I see these people who have had less fortunate circumstances than I have had these powerful experiences where they just break down crying, and they say this is a life-changing weekend for me. And I kind of got upset. I felt left out because I didn't feel like it was life-changing. And going back to the prodigal son, everyone knows the son that the story's about, the son that left, was lost, and came back. I almost fell into the trap of the second son, the son who went up to the father and said, I've been here, I've served, I've been a good son to you, how come I don't get a celebration? And I almost fell into that trap, but luckily I didn't, and I was able to realize my job is not to be served, to be helped out by other people, to have someone there helping me through the tough times. My job is to be the person there helping someone else through the tough times. And so those of us who are blessed to have not had rougher times in life, it's our calling to make sure we're helping out other people.
And how do you feel that you've been able to do that?
Well, immediately after high school, I joined the core team of my church, which is the group of youth leaders. And so I would help run the Life Nights, I'd help run retreats, and it was so fulfilling for me. And even more than that, for example, at my job now, when I see an employee who just looks like they're having a rough day, I can just tell them, hey, just make sure you get your job done, and then leave it at that. But I'm not comfortable doing that. I have to make sure to, I pull them aside sometimes to be hey, is everything all right? Is there anything I can help with? If you need anything, let me know. outside of work as well. Like sometimes if an associate texts me saying, oh, hey, I'm going to be gone this entire weekend. These people are covering my shifts. I'll be like, okay, is everything all right? And they'll say, yeah, just some stuff with my family. I'm like, okay, well, let me know if you need anything. I'm trying to help be there. And again, that billboard for Christianity, helping them see what it's about. It's not about just going to church and coming home and then living our lives. It's about constantly showing that love that Christ gives us.
That's so important. If your Sunday doesn't change your Monday, then you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
That's what I always have in my head. And I wanted to ask you, when you were going throughout school, what was it like trying to still be that walking billboard, but also dealing with the temptations and pressures to be a certain way as a teenage boy, as a young man?
It's important to remember our purpose, to remember what we're doing, to remember the things that we are taught. It's important to just kind of stay grounded, and I go back to having that weekend away or those 5 minutes of quiet, just going back and letting the distractions of the world just kind of melt away, and remembering who you are and God's role in your life and all the blessings He's done for you. It's easier to stay on the path when you take that time to not lose yourself.
How do you stay so centered with everything that you have been doing?
How do I stay centered? Again, it's a time
without putting God on the back burner, basically.
It goes back. I feel like having that time alone or that time surrounding yourself with people who share your faith is probably one of the most important things you can do. It just comes down to our lives are busy. Or our lives are so filled with distractions between our cell phones and TVs and emails and hanging out with this friend, hanging out with that friend, spending time with your family and doing all these things. We get so distracted, and then God does get put back on the back burner because it's oh, that can be important later. I have to deal with all these things right now, but it needs to be the other way around. If we put God first, everything else falls in line.
The great reminder for me is that we're not guaranteed tomorrow. We're not even guaranteed our next breath.
Yeah.
So that's a scary thing for me. I want to make sure that I'm where I'm supposed to be when I'm supposed to be, because I'd hate to oh, I can do that tomorrow. Oh, I can do. The funniest thing is when I hear people say, oh, well, I don't need him right now. Maybe in the future. And
right.
I'm what if you don't have the future?
Right. We never know what's coming. And that's also a great way to kind of help yourself stay on that path, is realize today is what's important. Things that have happened in the past that are getting me down, I can either learn from them, but not dwell on them. Things that are in the future that are stressing me out, I can do what I can right now to prepare for them, but I can only do so much. I need to live right now and love the life I'm living.
How do you deal with stress? Because as a manager, I'm sure there's lots of stress, and then you had stress as a college student. So how do you go about managing that?
I actually struggle with problems of anxiety sometimes. It actually runs in my family.
Ditto.
The biggest way to help deal with stress is think through a problem. Try not to let my mind run wild of what can go wrong and the craziest circumstances of, oh, if this thing happens and this thing happens and this thing happens and it's all going to fall apart. It's important to remember, for example, something bad happens at work. It's oh, but if it escalates to this, I can get in trouble, I can lose my job. And it's important to take a step back and realize the chances of it just snowballing so out of control is unlikely. It's a lot of times when people get stressed, they kind of think about driving a car. They take their hands off the wheel and they're oh my gosh, what's happening? It's important to make sure you keep your hands on the wheel, keep in control, do what you can to fix the situation, but also realize there's things that are out of your control. You need to let go and let God take control.
Very well spoken. I'm so proud of you. I can't tell you how nervous Andrew was to come and share his story, and I get this all the time from people, and it's so important to step outside of your comfort zone. I know we've talked about this, and I know you talked about how important it is to do things outside of your comfort zone and things that are away from the norm.
And going back to dropping out of college, I was so outside my comfort zone.
Were your parents on board with that? Okay,
that's exactly what I was about to say. I was scared of telling my parents I had made the decision to drop out of college. What happened is I had just started working full time, taking online classes.
You worked you did a good year of college, right? So kind of
I did
doing all that work and then dropping out.
Almost 2 years total.
Wow.
And it was scary because you hear the stories of like these
Dropouts.
incredibly famous people who dropped out of college, and it's like, oh, but they did fine. But there's no way I can do that. If I drop out of college, my life's gonna fall apart. I'm never gonna get a job, and it was scary. It was really scary. But I realized that college wasn't for me. I was wasting my time. I was stressing myself out with classes and a major that I wasn't passionate about, and I had just started working full time, only taking online classes, and I would go to work every day super excited for the next day. I was super excited to do the work. I was super excited when I leave work to be there the next day. And I realized I can work. College can come later. And a lot of people, I was actually talking with one of my friends the other day where she's not sure about her major. I jokingly asked her, like, oh, are you passionate about your major in passing? And a couple of days later, I was like, hey, I made that joke and you seemed a little uncomfortable. Is everything okay? And she said, I'm not passionate about my major. I'm scared because I'm almost halfway through. I don't know what I want to do with this degree. And she's like, I'm just scared to drop out because that's not what people do. I'm scared of my parents. And I said, I was exactly where you were. It's important to take the time and realize, what do you want to do? Because if you don't want to be in college, if you don't want that degree, if you don't have that goal in mind of like, I'm going to get this degree and get this job, it's much harder to finish college. If you don't know where you're going, it's a lot harder to kind of be on that journey.
I was looking at the transfer rate at some schools and the graduation rates, and they're like sad.
Yeah.
Like they're really sad. Like not saying that people drop out or like bad people or anything, but it's so scary to know that so many people go through that same thing.
Yeah.
For somebody who like me, I want to finish. I want to finish strong. I want to get through it.
Yeah.
Well, when it comes to what you actually want to do you see yourself being like a manager of a coffee shop for a long time, or do you see do you have other goals in the long-term future that you're like considering?
And right now, no. Like I don't know what I'm going to do, and that's something I'm constantly praying about and constantly just saying like, God, I don't want this to be what I want specifically. I want this to be what you want, what I can do to do your will the best way. And if that's being a manager, that's great. If that's going back to school and becoming a teacher, becoming a mathematician, that's great. Just lead me in the right path, help me feel comfortable with the decisions that I'm making. And if wherever it leads me, I'm not going to do something that's making me uncomfortable. I'm not going to do something like forcing myself to go through school just because society says we have to.
That's important. What's it like for you bringing somebody into that picture and bringing somebody into that future that you're kind of creating?
At my job, I did meet my current fiance.
I was going to let him say it.
What are you asking specifically about our faith life together or about our...
Well, it's, you're bringing somebody into this picture and your identities are going to become one, and so what's going on in your head with that?
That was a big consideration when I was dropping out of college, because it's hard because I was like...
There's somebody else.
There's someone else to take in consideration. Yeah. It's not just what I want, it's what's going to be best for us in our future. And so what it was just a lot of nights on the phone because I happened to be out of town for work at that time. And a lot of nights on the phone just trying to decide, like, if I do this, if I drop out of school and I just work, will we be okay? Will we be able to have the life we want? And she was very supportive of me, and so that helped a lot. And I think it's another great thing for people who deal with stress is to have someone who you know will always be there for you. And it doesn't have to be a boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, husband, wife. It doesn't have to be that. It can just be a good friend. It can be a pastor. It can be a coworker. It can be just be a coworker. Like, you can go to work and tell them your problems, and they'll be like, I hear you. Like, even just having someone to vent to can do wonders, and that helps with the stress so much. And she has helped me with my stress so much. She knows when I'm starting to spiral out of control with my anxiety, and she helps me take a step back and kind of ground myself.
Wow. I love that so much. I think it's awesome. But back to your whole faith thing. How are you guys incorporating God and faith into your guys' relationship and also your guys' future marriage together?
We make sure to go to Mass together every week. Sometimes because of my crazy work schedule, we're not able to, but we make it a point to attempt to. And we feel it's really important just to spend that time with God together. We've already talked about when we get married, we're going to start doing morning and evening prayers together, and we're doing our marriage prep with our pastor meeting with him to discuss all of that and help make sure that our wedding is really exciting, but it's not just the wedding you have to worry about, it's the marriage. And our marriage isn't just her and I, it's her, I, and God. And so we're working really hard to make sure that all stays together and we don't lose focus.
Do you feel that your parents have been a great representation of like what a solid marriage under God should look like?
Yes, I'm very blessed with that. It's sad to see what some of the families have to go through, and especially a lot of people our age, like you just see having split families, and it's really sad. I'm very blessed to have family that supports me and is always there for me.
I'm sure they're very supportive in the man that you have become and the man that you're going to continue to be.
Yes, I'm very happy. It was scary telling them that I was dropping out of college, and because my promotion wasn't official, it wasn't even assured. I was just like,
that's faith.
Yeah, it was. But it was scary telling them that when it's like, hey, I'm leaving school, something that you guys have been pushing me to do because you think it's what's best for me. I feel like that's not what's best for me. And I'm doing this thing where it might go great, or I might lose my job 6 months from now because I didn't do a good job. But this is what I feel like I have to do, and they were very supportive of that. They completely understood, because our parents are smarter than we sometimes give them credit for. They've seen it. They saw it coming months before. They saw it coming like, oh, he's probably not going to continue
parents
school.
Actually have a lot of good wisdom.
Yeah,
like
they helped me. And
once you finally open up,
and they said it's important to make a plan. Again, because if you don't have that goal, something you're working towards, then you get lost. Mm-hmm. It said it's important to have a plan. Whether that plan is to return to school or not, that's not important. The plan is just to make sure that you know you're working towards something.
And what type of boundaries have you and your fiance set into place as boyfriend and girlfriend before marriage?
What do you mean?
Well, as far as like your faith goes, I know that there's different norms of things that you should do as boyfriend and girlfriend and things that you shouldn't, and you should wait for marriage.
What it comes down to is this. It's very important that I help her be the best person she can, and she helps me be the best person I can. And we kind of make our decisions based on that. Based on everything, like not even just our personal romantic lives, but our professional lives. For example, she's a teacher and she's going back to school right now, and it's hard for her, but I help her stay on that path because that's helping her become the best person she can be. And sometimes when I get stressed out of my job and be like, oh, I need to go quit because like this job is just too much stress, and she's like, no, that's not what's best, you know that. And she kind of helps bring me back down and realize that this is what I need to be doing, and she's helping me be the best person I can be.
How did you know that she was the one? I saw pictures of him proposing. It was so cute, but I wanted to know, like, because obviously, like, when you're younger, you're still trying to, like, figure out who you are and kind of what you want. So how did you know that she was the person that would be a good fit for you?
A lot of people, even when we first started dating, becoming serious, I had a friend who was like, Andrew, you're so young. Are you sure you want to do this? And I spent some time thinking about that, and I was like, I know I'm young, but her and I both started this relationship not expecting it to be something long-term. We both expected this to be something that we're going to have fun, and eventually the feelings will fade away, which is not a great way to get into a relationship. It's just where we were at the time in our lives.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But then we kept talking, and we kept talking, and we kept talking, and it was just, we cared so much about each other. And you asked me the question earlier about, before the show, about how I know she was the one. We kind of got distracted. And the honest answer is, I could say how I felt to know she was the one, but it's not going to help anyone else. How I knew she was the one was there was no one else that I wanted to be with. There was no one else that I could see myself. Didn't contemplate breaking up with her, but I just tried to contemplate my life without her, and it was not something I was happy thinking about. It's not something I wanted, and being with her brings me so much joy, and that is how I knew, like, oh, this is the person I want to spend my life with, especially because of that whole thing where she helps me be the best person I can be. I help her be the best person she can be, and while any relationship, friendship, or family should be based on that dynamic, it was so special with her. It was something that I knew, like, I want to do this with her for the rest of my life. I want to help her fulfill God's will for her, and I want her to help me fulfill God's will for me.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank
I think
you.
it's incredible. Praise God. And you do definitely have a story, guys, and I'm sure you guys can definitely see that. What things have happened in your life that you can just, praise God for? Because you say that you don't have like these, bad things that have happened to you where you can look at it and be like, oh, well, God was there with me. But what types of things have happened in your life that were positive, that you know that God's hand was on it?
My fiance, my family, my job, all the things we've been talking about are all blessings from God. Everything we have is a blessing from God. And the love I get from my family and my fiance, I know is, again, Christ's love he gives to us, we give to other people. And so I know that's a blessing from God. I've just been really fortunate, and I'm fortunate. I'm thankful that God gave me these blessings, because now I can in turn go and help other people find their blessings.
And what advice do you have for young men out there who, want that love, but are not really sure? Like, obviously they shouldn't be out searching for it, right? Just let it come to them.
And I was just about to say that. There's always that saying, like, oh, it comes when you least expect it. That's exactly what happened. I was not expecting to find the woman I was going to one day marry.
All of a sudden, I'm just scrolling through Facebook and like, what? Andrew's engaged? Like, what?
Yeah, it's hard to explain, but the moment I stopped, like, trying to find something that I wanted to define, like, I want this relationship to be like this, I want this relationship to be like this. As soon as I stopped that, like, I'm going to find someone I connect with and see where it goes, and I found her. The best piece of advice I can give is let go of the reins and let God take control.
Keep your hands on the wheel too, just in case.
We met at work, which, interesting story, the job I had before my current job where I met her, I had no reason to leave it. It was a great job, got plenty of hours, got good pay. I had no reason to leave it. I just felt this kind of restlessness inside me, like, okay, it's time to do something new. That restlessness was I interpret it as God telling me, like, yeah, you're doing great here, but I need you over here.
Was that scary, kind of like taking that step?
It was extremely scary, because again, it was a job that I was good at, and it was a great job to be at. And if anything, I almost kind of took a step down in what I was doing, going to a new job, but it just felt right. And obviously, my promotion, my fiance, many friends I have now are from my job, and so that restlessness inside is a message from God, just saying, like, you're doing a good job here, Andrew, but kind of need you to go this way, because this is where I have things in plan for you. And that's, I think, a great message for anyone, is if things in your life are great, if things in your life are good, like you don't have anything to complain about, but you still feel something wrong inside of you, that might be God giving you a little push saying, okay, you're doing okay, but it's time to go out of your comfort zone.
I have something else for you.
Yeah, it's time for you to take another step. You can stay here and be fine, but that's not where I need you. I need you to go talk to that new person, go try that new job. Go travel to this place. Well,
I want to thank you so much for being on the show. I see lots of steps of faith in your story, and thank you for being willing to share it and being vulnerable. Thank you guys so much for watching and following Shasta's journey. I hope you guys are inspired to share your story. You can go to shastasjourney.com or find us on social media. Hope God blesses you guys abundantly.